All right, let's dive right into one of history's great scholarly detective cases. We're going to be focusing on a single ancient letter, the epistle to Titus, and a really brilliant argument from the 18th century scholar William Paley. He was convinced this letter held hidden clues, not just about whether it was authentic, but to a whole lost chapter in history.
So the case kicks off with a line that is, well, it's truly bizarre for a sacred text. The letter to Titus opens with this shockingly blunt insult against the very people the letter's about. I mean, it's harsh, it's weirdly specific, and get this, it's a quote.
And that's really our central question here. Who does that? This isn't just any old quote. It's from a Greek poet named Epimenides from the 6th century BC. So why on earth would the author of a Christian letter borrow from a pagan source to make a point? For a lot of people, this looked like a major red flag. But for William Paley, it was the first big clue.
And here's where Paley just flips the whole argument on its head. He points out that appealing to what he calls heathen testimony is actually a move that's unique to one writer in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul. Paul does it in his speech at Athens, he does it in other letters, so this strange quote isn't a problem for Paul being the author, it's actually a characteristic signature.
This first clue really cracks the case wide open for a much deeper investigation. Paley figured that if this letter was genuinely from Paul, it should share a kind of linguistic fingerprint with other letters he wrote around the same time. So he started digging, and what he found was this amazing pattern of unique phrases connecting Titus not just to Paul in general, but to a very specific group of his writings.
So let's look at the first piece of evidence. This phrase, "it is a faithful saying," is a pretty distinctive way to introduce a key idea. And according to Paley, it only shows up in the letters to Timothy and this one, to Titus. Nowhere else. It's kind of like finding the same really unusual slang word in just 3 documents.
And the pattern just gets stronger. Paley also zeroes in on the unique use of the word sound to describe doctrine. The term pops up multiple times in 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus, but used in this specific way, you just don't find it anywhere else in the New Testament. It's another one of these distinct markers linking these 3 letters together.
And the evidence just keeps piling up. The title God Our Savior is used 3 times in 1 Timothy and 3 times in Titus. Outside of these 2 letters, it only appears 1 other time. You see, this isn't just a shared word, it's a shared and very specific term of reverence, and that creates a really powerful link between these texts.
So here's the crucial point. Paley isn't just finding random similarities. He's uncovering this whole web of connections, in vocabulary, in phrasing, even in the structure, that suggests these 3 letters, 1 and 2 Timothy and Titus, are more than just loosely related. No, they read like they were written by the same person, thinking the same thoughts at roughly the same time. And this similarity goes way beyond just single words. Take a look at this side-by-side comparison of the qualifications for a bishop from 1 Timothy and Titus. The parallels are just undeniable. It's not just the ideas, but the very structure and language. Husband of one wife, not given to wine, no striker. It's all strikingly similar. It's like seeing 2 blueprints drawn by the exact same architect.
From this mountain of linguistic data, Paley draws a pretty firm conclusion. These 3 letters are so deeply interconnected, they must have come from the same mind, and probably from the same period in that person's life. The linguistic fingerprint is a match. But, and this is a huge but, solving this mystery creates a brand new and much bigger problem.
And here's the big twist in our detective story. If these letters are authentic works of Paul, written at a specific time, you'd expect their details to fit neatly into his known biography, right? The one recorded in the book of Acts? Well, they don't. Not at all. It's like finding a diary entry from a famous person that describes a trip they never took. I mean, the letters are full of these specific personal details that just have no home in the official timeline. The letter to Titus says Paul left Titus on the island of Crete. It mentions Paul plans to winter in a city called Nicopolis. 1 Timothy says Paul left Timothy in Ephesus when he went to Macedonia. None of these events fit anywhere in the journeys recorded in the book of Acts. This is the moment of crisis in the investigation. We have all this overwhelming internal evidence that says these letters are a genuine, interconnected set. But we have all this external evidence that suggests the events they describe never even happened. So what gives? Are they just elaborate forgeries after all?
This is where Paley presents his masterstroke. He's faced with a seemingly impossible contradiction, but he doesn't discard the evidence.
Instead, he proposes a solution that is both breathtakingly simple and brilliantly elegant. He suggests that maybe, just maybe, we haven't been looking at the full map.
Paley's grand hypothesis is this. The book of Acts ends with Paul under house arrest in Rome, but that wasn't the end of his story. Paley argues that Paul was actually released from this first imprisonment and then embarked on another unwritten journey. And it's during this journey that all those homeless details from the letters finally find their place.
So, working from the letters themselves, Paley pieces together this plausible itinerary. First, Paul is released from Rome. Then he travels to Crete, where he leaves Titus. That's the detail from the first letter. From there, he journeys to Ephesus before heading to Macedonia, leaving Timothy behind, the detail from the second letter. And suddenly, all the puzzle pieces just snap right into place.
What's so powerful about this is that the letters, which seem to contradict the known history, now become witnesses that actually reinforce each other. The journey described in Titus creates the context for the journey in 1 Timothy. These aren't just isolated details, they are interlocking parts of a single, coherent narrative that was simply missing from the official record.
And here, in his own words, is Paley's core argument. Truth has a way of fitting together, even when the pieces are scattered across independent sources. A forger might create a simple, direct link to a known history, but to create 3 separate documents with scattered, seemingly contradictory details that can only be resolved by a single, unstated hypothesis, that kind of complex, subtle consistency, Paley argues, is the hallmark of reality.
And so, Paley leaves us with a choice. Which is more likely, that these letters are genuine artifacts bearing the subtle marks of a real, unrecorded history? Or that a forger possessed the genius to create a puzzle so complex, scattering clues across 3 different documents, knowing that the solution would remain hidden for centuries? In the end, Paley argues, a simple lie is easy to invent. Reality, with all its messy, interlocking details, is much harder to fake.